Most all of you know that people cut down trees from the forest to make lumber like what you see here. But do any of you know how? Well, today we're going to take a trip to Arkansas to show you just exactly how they take trees from the forest and turn them into products like this wooden pallet and the 1x4 boards below it. Buried deep in the Ozarks of Arkansas is the small town of Winslow, with a population of just under 400 people. Joe Norman is the operations manager for KFI, a traditional yet modern sawmill. As the morning fire dies down, it's time to start the mill for today's lumber.
All right, boys, let's go to work.
All right.
Let's go.
Once the mill is under full power and Joe is in the operating cab, he saws the logs from yesterday. The loader operator keeps feeding more logs onto the conveyor belt while they wait for today's truck to arrive. Once the log truck comes in, the loader operator unloads the logs starting at the top and working his way down to the bottom. Joe measures each log using a Doyle scale. The size of the log gives him an estimate of the finished product he can produce. Each log is measured, tagged with paint, and then documented by his lumber stacker, Cahill. The modern equipment and ways of today makes the work around a sawmill much easier than what Joe's family had when he was younger. Each limb had to be removed by hand using chainsaws. After that process, the logs were cut by Joe's older brother in order to fit onto the logging trucks. Logs were then loaded onto the trucks using an early generation boom loader. Logging trucks were much smaller then and were forced to make several trips. Once at the mill, two men would unload all the logs by hand and a forklift would move them over to the saw. The old sawmills were completely uncovered from the elements, and the sawyer running the saw had to stand very close to control the levers, and logs were manually turned by hand. Joe's father, Daniel, started logging cypress trees in 1952 when he was just 16, and let Joe get involved when he was just a boy. Their bond still holds true today, as Daniel still comes to visit the mill. But today, this mill is nothing short of a machinery marvel. Besides a climate-controlled cab, chains and hydraulic cylinders turn, adjust, and saw each log at the push of a button. Once each pass is made, the log is then rolled in order to saw off all the bark. The lever to Joe's left pushes each log through the saw and then back, while the right one rolls and adjusts every intricate detail of the log's position. Now it's time to saw the log into pieces of valuable lumber. The first person along the lumber line is the slab stacker. His job is to take the remaining pieces that contain bark called slabs and stack them to be sold for charcoal. The quality lumber is then sent down to the lumber stacker. He inspects each individual board to determine its quality and stacks it into the appropriate pile. Throughout the day, the loader operator moves around the logs, keeping Joe a constant supply for the saw. Each pass of the saw cuts not only through, but also into the side of the log to get each board. The quality of each board determines its use. Lower quality boards are used for wooden pallets, while the higher grades are measured and used for lumber stores and furniture. The sawmill's most profitable product are the cross ties. With about an 8-inch diameter and just under 9 feet in length, they are also the longest. The lumber stacker positions each log and uses a chainsaw to cut off the excess length. Once the tie is cut to length, a blade is then used to trim the bark off of the tie. A clean product means a better and more profitable sale to the buyer. The tie is then carefully dropped onto the stack with the others and neatly slid into position. Once a full stack is complete, a metal band is then placed around the stack and clamped down to be moved to the other end of the property with the loader. With such a heavy load, the operator must carefully maneuver the ties to keep them from shifting. The ties are slowly lifted and then carried to the opposite end where the weekly buyers come to pick up all lumber orders. These ties will be purchased to make railroad ties under train tracks. Once the saw has been shut off for the day, a tractor is used to pick up the sawdust. It's then taken outside to be put on the sawdust pile to be sold to farmers as the day comes to a close at KFI. Well, what do you think? Not exactly something you can do with a chainsaw in the backyard now, is it? Now, I don't know about you, but I'm going to leave this job to the professionals. Much less likely to lose an arm or leg. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.